Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon by TBA Rabbinic Intern Nico Losorelli.
What's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. This is the way of the average person, and some say this is the way of Sodom. This is a Mishnah from Pirkei Avot, our Mishnah full of the rabbinic wisdom of our sages. And now imagine if you walked into a Shabbat meal that was also a potluck, where everyone was assigned to bring something specific. And the host said this when you arrived: what's mine is mine, and what's yours is yours. Well, if you were the unlucky one to bring dips, well, you're just eating hummus and baba ganoush. And if you're the one to bring the wine, well, you're about to be really annoying to everyone else at the table. And if you're the one who brought the main dish, well, you're about to very uncomfortably lord over all the rest of the guests as they stare hungrily at you for a piece of chicken or maybe some tadig. Chances are you would not go back to this person's home for another meal, and chances are others would hear about it. Like Abraham greeting, we don't do this at meals. It's confusing, it's deceptive, and it's just plain rude. And like Abraham greeting the two angels in this week's parsha, we rush to give what we can, honoring our guests to make them feel as comfortable as possible. And we don't do this what's mine is mine and what's yours and yours business while hosting guests. So why do we do it in our day-to-day? In traffic, on the internet, and even face-to-face with other people? Why do we turn people into caricatures and even obstacles to be removed, saying what's mine is mine and what's yours is yours, having no desire even to broach a conversation? And that's exactly what the sentiment of what's mine is mine, what's yours and yours is. It is a lack of a conversation. Now, I, like many of you, am pretty conversationed out and not totally ready yet for every conversation, but even still, that is the work that stands before us in so many ways. In this week's parasha, Vayera, Abraham has to have a tough conversation, but not with just some fellow Hebrew, but with God. Now, God hears some of the dastardly goings-on of the city of Sodom having to do with neglecting the poor and the weak and threatening to perpetrate assault, and resolves to wipe out Sodom. When Abraham hears this, he humbly challenges God, asking, Ha'af tispei tzadikim b'rasha? Will you really wipe out the righteous with the evil? Essentially saying, you, God, who just wiped out all of humanity not so long ago with Noah and the flood, who just promised to make me into a great nation, and you, a God of justice, will you truly do something so heinous? It's a huge dilemma. Will you really indiscriminately destroy the whole city? When the righteous see what you have done, how will they ever trust you? God and Abraham have a back and forth. Abraham challenges God on whether or not, if there are 50 good people, would God still destroy Sodom? Then he sort of haggles 45, 40, 35, 30, 35, and finally 10. Abraham does some cosmic diplomacy with God, and God agrees that if God can find 10 righteous people within the city, then the city will be spared. 10 people, which seems to be a boundary that both God and Abraham can mutually agree on. In this conversation, Abraham took a leap into discomfort, a leap into fear, and a leap that was really both a gamble and an investment, given Abraham's investment in Abraham's relationship with God and God's relationship with Abraham. And God restrained God's power in order to take responsibility for God's creations and to not repeat the actions of the past, like the devastating flood, for example. This holy conversation between God and Abraham ultimately did not save the people of Sodom, because 10 righteous people ultimately could not be found. And while it didn't save this city, it did lay some important groundwork. It declared that the wholesale destruction of a city should not be taken lightly. It declared that people should be taken into account on their individual merits when making such decisions. And it declared that there should be a process to making these types of decisions. And that groundwork should serve future decisions and conversations. And while it doesn't provide us with all the answers that we need, it at least gives us the space to have the conversation and provides us with an important model in having hard conversations. It shows us that having hard conversations is actually an expression of love and investment in the person we're talking to. And it shows us that asking questions, essentially leading with curiosity, is essential. And it shows us that boundary setting is vital, literally. It moves us away from the what's mine is mine and what's yours and yours, which is just simply a wall, to later on in that very same Mishnah from Pirkei Avot, which says, what's mine is yours, and what's yours is yours, which is a boundary. This movement from wall to boundary, however, can only be productive if both parties state what's mine is yours, and what's yours is yours, which according to Pirkei Avot is the way of the tzaddik, the righteous, meaning that both parties must respect the other's right and agency to give what they can give and leave alone what they cannot. That means if I'm willing to give without taking, and you are willing to give without taking, then we can comfortably push each other towards a resolution or at least an understanding. It may not work out every time. After all, Sodom and those less than 10 righteous people couldn't be saved. But through trying and trying again, hopefully we can build a track record of good, collaborative, and righteous decision-making. This kind of partnership is just that. It's a partnership, and it requires mutual respect, seeing our fellow human beings not as enemies or obstacles, but rather as people just like us, made in the image of God, who are simply doing the best with the information they have. At least I have to hope that they are. So long as we're in the what's mine is mine and what's yours and yours headspace, we aren't going to be able to get much more information. But in moving towards mutuality in our conversations, we at least stand a chance at making some meaningful change.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.